So I am super excited about this today's episode of Voice of the Shy because we have the distinguished professor that taught entrepreneurship at Harvard Business School, Professor Stephen Rogers, who has been just a champion for Black businesses and Black entrepreneurship for over 30 years. So before it became a popular thing to talk about, he's been championing Black entrepreneurs, supporting them, and just keeping us at the forefront for corporate America to think about, for institutions to think about and figure out, how do we do what we're talking about right here? How do we rebuild Black Wall Street? How do we strengthen our businesses? He has a focus, of course, in finance. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today, talk about making sure that your business is strong, financially strong, so that you can scale and grow. And he has a background. He has his own business as well. So we're going to get into a little bit of all of that. So without further ado, I will welcome Professor Stephen Rogers.
Kiana, thank you very much. It's my absolute pleasure to be here. I am actually retired professor.
Retired. I'm sorry, I did not add that.
I retired from Harvard Business School in July 2019, where I taught entrepreneurial finance, and I'm back home here in Chicago. I was born and raised in the Inglewood community here in Chicago, and I'm back home in Chicago full time now.
Yeah, so a lot of people, I know when I first heard your story, I did not realize that you were from Inglewood, that you've done a lot of investing in Inglewood. So just tell us a little bit about your background and why you've been so passionate for years for Black entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I'm born and raised in Inglewood, 410 West 60th Place, right in the heart of it. I had a great childhood there, a great upbringing with a single parent. And I say a great upbringing because my memory is one of just a lot of fun being a kid there. But I went to Inglewood High School for 1 year, and then I actually left and I went to high school in the suburbs of Philadelphia in a program called A Better Chance. It's actually the same program that former governor of Massachusetts, Deval Patrick, went to as well. And he's from Inglewood community also. But it's a Better Chance program where I actually lived in a house in a suburban community with 11 other students from around the country. And we went to the local high school. Very affluent community. The program is called A Better Chance. It's been in existence since 1957. It exists to provide opportunities to people who the organization says, you're really smart and you need an opportunity, a chance to show that brilliance in an academic environment that may be a little more challenging than where you presently are. And so they did that. So, but I'm from Inglewood. My heart is in Inglewood. My grandparents were one of the first African-Americans to buy real estate on the block at 410 West 60th Place in 1956. They could not buy the house originally because of racial discrimination. So they just rented it. And then they finally, 4 years after renting the house, they ended up getting a mortgage from Sears Roebuck and Company. And I have a copy of the mortgage that they got with Sears Roebuck and Company in buying that house. And I own that house today. My mother lived there, as well as I bought the house when I was in business school. So, I've loved Inglewood. I'm devoted to the uplifting of Inglewood as well as other poor Black communities, low-income Black communities. We need to help those Black communities rebound and become an attractive place for Black-owned businesses to go back to.
Absolutely. So you talked about one. I didn't know Sears was in the the mortgage lending business.
Yeah, used to be able to buy a house from Sears.
Wow,
a little mobile home.
Sears.
So let me tell you something. Sears was to the to the general community then as Amazon is today. You remember the commercial? They said Sears has everything. And one of the things about Sears is this relative to Black people. There was a time, as you well know, when your parents, your grandparents, when they went to buy products in stores, they were treated like second-class, third-class citizens. They had to go in through the back door. The product that they bought was inferior. And Sears came on the scene in the 1925. And Sears comes on the scene, and Sears said, basically, you don't have to go into those stores. You can order from our mail order catalog. So Black people were able to get their dignity back as a result of Sears being created, because Black people now didn't have to go to these stores and be treated the way that they were being treated. They could mail order stuff from Sears. The white community was so incensed by the success of Sears with black people, because now black people weren't going to the white stores. They were so pissed off and incensed that they started a marketing campaign. You're in marketing, you know the impact of it. They started a marketing campaign saying, Sears is a black-owned company. Don't buy from them.
Wow.
Okay? So Sears literally had to come out and say, no, we're not a black-owned company. We are perfectly fine with black people, but we're not a black-owned company. So it was, and that has always been something that's been an issue, and that is for black entrepreneurs, and that is what I call racial concealment. Because what we know is it's tough to have a broad market of customers if your business is known as being a black-owned business. And it goes back to Sears with the white community literally trying to use it to hurt the black community in that instance. And you know, Sears also has that great history with us with the schools by one of the founders, the Rosenwald schools. I'm sorry, and he created, I think, about 1,000 schools throughout the South, primarily in rural areas. He was one of the founders of Sears. The Rosenwald schools at that time, black kids were not going to school. The schools were not integrated. And John Lewis went to the Rosenwald schools, as well as Maya Angelou went to the Rosenwald schools.
Wow. I did not know that history. That makes sense why my grandma had such an affinity to Sears for so long. And that honestly does. It makes a lot of sense. So you just talked about some of the challenges that Black entrepreneurs have. So I want to talk about that. So you've been a champion for Black entrepreneurs since the 80s. So what have you seen, and what do you think about the current state of Black entrepreneurship?
Yeah. I'm the child of a black entrepreneur. My mother was the first black entrepreneur that I knew. She was what we call a lifestyle entrepreneur, and that is, she didn't have any kind of plan. She just sort of was a good hustle, selling used furniture and selling used clothes on Maxwell Street. And we had some used furniture stores periodically. But she was what we call a lifestyle entrepreneur. And that is a person who doesn't have a plan, who is basically in business just to generate enough income to lead a quality lifestyle. And I've always proposed that we need more than lifestyle entrepreneurs in the black community. We need what are called high growth entrepreneurs, just like you. And those are people who have a plan, they have a business that they are looking to grow exponentially, with the byproduct of that growth being wealth creation for themselves, wealth creation for their investors, and possibly even wealth creation for some of the employees who could own a stake in the business. So my entire life has been focused towards the uplifting of the black community using black entrepreneurship for that purpose. And the reason is because what we know is, historically and even today, black people, black-owned businesses are the largest private employer of black people in the country. The government is the number one employee of black people, but black-owned businesses are the number one private employer of black people in the country. So when we get to a situation like we are today, where pre-pandemic, there was about 2.6 million black-owned businesses, and now almost 50% of them have closed, the story is one of sadness. It is one of sadness because what we know is that those black-owned businesses are closing. A couple of things are happening. One is black people are losing jobs. Two is the products and the services that those black-owned businesses provide to the black community are going away as well. So it's hurting the black community. But at the same time, let me just tell you this. There are some black-owned businesses that are thriving right now. And one of the ones that is thriving is one in Chicago called Cleo's Southern Cuisine. They are a business that pre-pandemic, their business model was one where it was primarily takeout. So when the pandemic hit, their business model was perfect for the pandemic because they didn't have to make any adjustments. The only adjustment that they had to make is their capacity. Now, if you call to place an order, you could have picked it up 5 minutes in the past pre-pandemic. Today, it's almost 90-minute wait to get the order because their business is so flourishing. And I cite that because it's a perfect example as to what every business should be doing right now. All of our black-owned businesses should be pivoting to a model that does not rely on physically touching the customer. that relies on some way on interacting with the customer without physically having to possibly see them or touch them. What I would very quickly summarize for Black-owned businesses today, there's three things that I'm advising Black-owned businesses to do today. One is load up on cash. Every business needs cash. I serve on the board of several Fortune 500 companies. Pandemic hit, we immediately started going to our line of credit, getting more access to capital. And you're getting cash when things are uncertain so that you can deal with that uncertainty. So if it's good for the big companies to load up on cash on their balance sheet, it is good for the small Black-owned businesses or the medium-sized or the large Black-owned businesses to do the same. Load up on cash. How do you do that? Get SBA loan, get the PPP loan if it comes back out, for example. I was begging Black businesses to get that money because it was dirt cheap capital. But right now, load up on cash. Number two, every business now should be looking at having multiple lines of revenue. If you were a single revenue business before, you should look to have at least two more lines of revenue coming into your business. So every business should be looking at increasing their lines of revenue, diversifying their offerings, if you will. Number three, and the final one is, you need to make sure that you have your expenses under control. Your mind should be right now as a Black entrepreneur, how do I get my expenses down? How do I minimize my fixed costs, and especially those fixed costs are costs that are there if your business opens tomorrow or if it's closed tomorrow and you don't have any customers coming in, you still have to pay that cost. And that cost would be, for example, your rent. Maybe you go to your landlord, you say, today, I don't need as much space as I did before because no customers come into my building. I'd like you to take half of the space back. I keep half of the space and you cut my rent by 60%. So three things again: load up on cash, generate revenue from multiple lines of revenue, and then finally cut your cost.
Those are amazing tips. So we're gonna have to dissect those a little bit. I'm gonna start with the cash. So we talked about this before, and you advised me, just because you wanted to see us grow here at WDB, that we need to make sure that we are taking the loans and taking like I said, the access that's available. So personal story, I went after the grants for our company. Yeah. And we were successful in getting it. But when it came to the loan, I had a limiting belief. I said, well, why do I want to take on debt? So I think that's something that a lot of Black entrepreneurs do experience, because historically we don't have 2 and 3 generations to say, oh, this is how the big companies do it. This is actually how you use that capital to grow. We look at that as bad. So I finally, of course, switched what I was thinking, but I just wanted you to kind of break down how Black businesses should look at debt and why should we look at it in a good way to grow?
Yeah, debt can be your friend. If you don't have debt financing, then you got to get equity financing, but you got to get some financing. Very few businesses can have long-term success, especially, remember what I said earlier around the type of businesses that we need. We need more high-growth businesses versus mom-and-pop lifestyle businesses. And what we know is, for example, we know that businesses, from research, we know that the threshold for a business to have profitability is at least $250,000 of revenue. We know that the first employee that a business is likely to have is when that business has at least $250,000 of revenue. And I bring that up, Kiana, because unfortunately, 95% of Black-owned businesses have less than $250,000 of revenue. So they're almost in a sort of a hustle lifestyle business. We need businesses to grow, and part of their ability to grow is predicated on your ability to get capital. So one way to get capital and one capital security is debt capital. And this is the way that I want you to think about debt capital. And debt is a loan that you're getting from an entity, of individual or a financial institution. But that loan will have what's called principal, which is the amount of money that they're giving you, and then interest, which is called your cost of capital. So a bank charges you interest on that loan. And that interest is typically some kind of percentage, and name is some percentage. So it could be 5% or basis points. It could be 500 basis points. 100 basis points equals 1%. So you get the loan, $1,000 loan, it's 600 basis points. So that's $1,000 loan. It's 6% interest that you're required. The way to think about that is, if I took this money at a cost of capital of 6% and I invested it by buying new products that I could sell, but invested in my business, can I get a return that's greater than my cost of capital? So if your cost of capital is 6%, the question is, which would be, just for simplistic sake, if we got $1,000 loan, 6% in that instance would be what? $60. So if we got $1,000 loan at 6%, it'd be $60. The question is, could you take that $1,000 now and invest it in something that's such that you got, for example, a 12% return? So your ideal way to think about debt is, I have cost of capital at 6%. Can I make the investment and get a return of at least 12%? I want you to always look to get a return that's 100% greater than your cost of capital, okay? So 100%, 6% cost, 12% return. So if you can do that, that cost of capital is is nominal. It is not hurting your business whatsoever. And so as we think about growing, we should always think about, can I get a return on this investment that's at least two times greater than my cost of capital? If you can do that, you can afford to take that debt because you're getting good profit on it. The last thing I would say is this: to determine if you are eligible for debt financing, you must have a history, ideally, of positive cash flow. And what the bank wants to see, and typically any lender wants to see, is that your cash flow each year, your positive cash flow, your profit, let's go to your profit versus your cash flow. If your profit is 1.25 for every dollar of debt that you owe. So we're looking at a ratio that you have profit of $1.25 for every dollar of debt that you owe that year. Then you qualify for the loan. So if you have if you have profit of $125, then you qualify for a loan that has to pay back $100 that year, okay? So remember that 1.25 to 1 ratio, which determines how much money you qualify for. Once you qualify for it, go get that money, as long as you can say, if I got the money, I can double my return. So let's say you got capital at 25%. If you can get a 50% return, that cost of capital is not onerous. It sounds obscene, but it depends on your return. Now, I don't want you to go out there and get high cost of capital. I don't want you to use credit cards that cost 30% interest rate, because you may not be able to get that 60% if it costs you 30%, 60% return. So what we're getting to, though, Kiana, is the fundamentals of owning a good business, a Black-owned business or a white-owned business, any kind of business is, entrepreneurs need to learn and be comfortable with the fundamentals of finance.
Absolutely.
Passion is not enough. Just saying, I've always wanted to own my business and I work hard. That's not enough. You know, I had a passion at a time when Tiger Woods first came out. I had a passion for playing golf. Well, the reality is I never learned how to play, so I wasn't worth a damn. Okay? You got to learn the skills and the fundamentals of these things if you want to succeed. Otherwise, all you're doing out there, like I was doing when I was trying to play golf, was just out there swinging and hitting, swinging and missing, swinging. And it's a quite inefficient, exhausting way to proceed with anything. So I'm a strong advocate of, it is imperative that Black owners, that we do more than just simply say we want to hustle and work, that we learn the fundamentals of finance. And one way to learn those, here's a shameless plug, get my book, Entrepreneurial Finance, okay? It's on Amazon, and it's McGraw-Hill is the publisher. And if you get that book, what you'll find is I've written the book with the same voice that I'm talking to you now. The book is written for the purpose of explaining things in a nice, simple way to entrepreneurs who are presently in business. It is not written based off of theory. It is not written for academic purposes. It's written for the practitioner.
It is. I actually have the book. I purchased it over the summer.
There you go. You keep saying all the right things. There you go. Thank you.
It's the truth though, but you're right, and I think that that's something. Even being an entrepreneur for going on 15 years, we introduce new product lines. If it's not profitable, if it doesn't make sense,
Yeah. Well. Let me put a caveat there.
Okay.
You're absolutely right. The first way that we should think about a new product is, and this is how I want everybody to think, even if you're using your own money, that all of us should look at whatever product that we're offering, product or service, that if it costs us $1, we always want to get at least $2 for it. We want to sell it for $2. That gives us a gross margin of 50%. Okay? That's called Keystone. Keystone. The retail industry commonly says, when we buy a product, we want Keystone markups. So that means you double the price. So that should be your minimum expected return on when you introduce a new product or a new service. Here's a caveat. You can decide I will take less than Keystone because this product that I'm going to introduce can be what's called a loss leader. Okay? That I am not going to make great profit. In fact, I could be willing to actually take a loss on this product because this product will attract people to come into my store. This product will attract people to come to my website.
Absolutely.
And when they get there, they're going to buy something else. And they're going to buy something else. And that something else is going to have a markup of at least Keystone. And what we know is that's common with grocery stores. Milk is not extraordinarily profitable, but they have milk that they sell in grocery stores, despite the fact it's not extraordinarily profitable, because people who come into a grocery store, where is the milk located when you go into a grocery store? It's in the back.
In the back.
And what do you have to do as a result of going to that back? You got to pass all of these other things. You have to pass all of these salty snacks and all of these other items that are grabbing you potentially off of an impulse purchase that are not only marked up with Keystone, but even higher. It may have cost them $1. They're selling it to you for $5. So that's one instance there, Kiana, where you may actually decide we're going to carry a product that's not profitable because it is a loss leader.
Yes. So example for us, our business card. So that's a loss leader for us, but it's a fundamental thing that every, business owner, entrepreneur needs, but it brings them in the door. It gets us their contact information and we can use that to go on and sell and do other things. So I think that profitability, like I said, is so important. And you also mentioned, like you said, when you're trying to access capital, making sure that your business is profitable. So I know that was another challenge that a lot of businesses I saw had when they were going to try to apply for these loans. If you're always trying to take a loss because you don't want to pay taxes or, you're trying to save and keep as much money in your pocket, it's okay, but you have to think about the long game. When we purchased our building, I was 3 years out. I was making sure, and I do that for the company anyway, but I was really making sure that we were at our most profitable because I knew that this is what they were going to be looking at to determine if we qualify for that building or not.
Well, you hit it right on the head. The fundamentals of finance are very simple, and that is revenue minus expenses equals profit. All business should have the objective of maximizing their profit. And the only reason why somebody doesn't want to maximize their profit, as you just said, is for tax reasons, where they literally said, I have several different businesses. I don't want this one to be profitable because those losses that business has, I can apply it against other profits of my other businesses. That's what Donald Trump did in terms of not being required to pay taxes, because what he had businesses that had losses, and the federal government says, and it's nothing illegal, they say those losses now can be used, they're called tax loss carry forwards. Those losses can be used to reduce the taxes on profits that you have in another business. But barring that, our objective should be to run a profitable entity. Because what we're in business for, ideally, is to create value. We want to create value, meaning the value of your business. If you were to sell it tomorrow, that's what we're looking at as business entrepreneurs, Black entrepreneurs. We want that business tomorrow to be worth more than what it was yesterday. And one way that that's determined is your business profitable? Not just simply do you have revenue, because revenue without profitability does not necessarily create value. We see it happening on with the .com era, but that was crazy and that was an aberration. But you want revenue and you want profitability, because with profit comes greater increased value of your business. So, and let me just say this, it's tough as hell. I've owned 3 companies. Running a profitable business is hard. It's really, really hard. You must have some discipline, but I think it really starts with, are you charging the right price at the top? And sometimes people will say, I can't be profitable. And we say, well, just raise your prices. Well, my customers won't accept my price increases. Then the question becomes, if you can't increase your prices, and then if you can't reduce your costs, then maybe you need to get out of that business. Your customers are telling you something. Let the market speak to you. Everything that you do, every business should have an assessment. You should know for each one of your products that you offer or the services that you offer, which one is profitable, how profitable is it, and then you make a decision. Do you want to retain that line of business? Because if it's not profitable, you may want to get rid of it, because it will start eating your profit at the bottom. I'll close this out. I'm on the board of a company that's in business for 150 years. 105 years. And we have a line. We sell a product that is not profitable. I've been on that board for 12 years. And every doggone board meeting, 4 times a year, every quarterly board meeting, we talk about whether or not we need to get rid of that product line. The only reason we keep it is because this is what's always said. Well, you know, my grandfather, he started this business. And when he started this business, that was the product line that he had when we started. So there's sentimental reasons for carrying a product line that is not profitable.
I think that's something that's so true. Entrepreneurs fall in love sometimes with the idea of what they want to serve or what they want to do, but you have to be willing to, like you said, always look at it, and it has to make financial sense, unless it's a loss leader.
Yeah.
And the second point that you made about being able to diversify your revenue, I think is so spot on as well. Just because us as a printer, the printer across the street from us closed during this time. You know, we weren't celebrating that, but it was also because they were just only focused on print. Where I saw the trend going years ago, I said, we have to be able to offer more. We have to be able to offer web and digital solutions and podcast setup and different things like that. So business is also, and I want to ask you about that, about some of your entrepreneur experiences, is about foresight, being able to really be able to,
there you go.
You have to be able to go into the future and meet the customer's demands and needs. Just like the young lady you mentioned, Cleo, understanding that takeout convenience, you know, and we had talked a little bit offline. Not only was it convenience, it was premium food at a convenience, which
there
was,
you go.
She offers salmon and rice pilaf and things like that. So that's something that you can't access very easily for takeout. So being able to really see into the forefront, and sometimes you have to be able, like you said, let go of the concept that you have now to adapt, because it's survival of the fittest. So you can hold on to it, and it can be like an anchor, and it can drag you down.
You hit it. You hit it right on. A couple of things very quickly. One is the CEO's primary responsibility. If you're the founder of your company, your primary responsibility is to be the visionary.
Mm-hmm.
You're also responsible, unless you hire somebody else, to execute on your vision, to carry your vision out. But your primary responsibility is to be the visionary, and that is trying to look and see where this business should be going. And the way that you need to think about that, and this is touches on your point, is you need to think strategically. That's one of the shortcomings of so many entrepreneurs, Black as well as white, and that is they don't think strategically. Strategic thinking means always thinking about how is your business different than any other business. If you're going to open up a business, you want to get financing from someone, they will ask you, what is your strategy? What they're asking you is, how is your business different? And one of the things last year, if I were to ask you, Kiana, tell me your strategy, and go across the street to the other printer and say, what is your strategy? Kiana say, well, I do printing, but I also do these other things. That's how I'm different than him across the street. You always should know, how is it that your business is different? And therefore, every year, every entrepreneur should be very clear about, am I still being different, or is everybody actually now either catching up to doing what I'm doing, or am I doing what everybody else is doing? Now, being different, there's easy ways to be different. You can be different with price. And when you talk about being different with price, and you're using that example that I just mentioned with Cleo's, I don't want everybody to think the way to be different with price is have a lower price.
Yes.
Cleo's Southern Cuisine, their prices are not low. That young sister, and I love her business model. She decided we're going to be primarily takeout. We're not going to open on Monday and Tuesday, and we're going to only open from 2 o'clock in the afternoon to 8 at night. She was very specific and very different. And then she said, and we're going to offer a quality product at a premium price. Okay. So you can be different in price. You can be different in terms of the offering. You can be different in terms of how you bundle things. But you should always, as the CEO of your company, every year be able to say, this is how we're different. And that is what's called strategic thinking.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it just spot you, and you have to create that value. You can never take for granted. Like you said, I love that point about you have to constantly outgrow your competition. So even when they catch up to you, now you have to be focused on doing something else. So you can never be so comfortable that you feel like,
to your point, you're not entitled to stay in business.
no.
There's nothing that entitles you just because you had success last year. There's nothing that entitles you to have success based off of the same thing. Some people get pissed off. Well, they're just trying to do exactly what I'm trying to do. That's smart. That's not something that people should be indicted for. Now, your job is to be what we call constructively paranoid. And you should always be thinking as a CEO, somebody is trying to do exactly what I'm trying to do. And they're trying to do it by being different, by offering what I'm doing at a lower price. That should be how you think. There should be paranoia on your part, such that you always say, I'm staying fresh and I'm staying innovative with my ideas. But the way to do that is that you have to be willing to let go. And we talk about letting go. We talk about that in the world of business training as engaging and taking ownership of what we call the theory of sunk costs. The theory of sunk costs. The theory of SUNK, sunk cost. And the theory of sunk cost says this. As a business owner, you do not make your decisions about what you're going to do today or tomorrow based on your investment yesterday. That you have to look at your investment yesterday as a cost that you've incurred, that you've put into a ground, you've buried it, and now your decision about tomorrow is based off of just fresh information without being anchored and burdened by what you did yesterday. So, for example, Blockbuster Video. Blockbuster Video, they said, listen, we are renting videos, and instead of thinking strategically, how can they constantly be different? They started thinking tactically. So instead of saying the business model of people coming into the video store, buying videos, renting videos is getting outdated, so let's now be willing to cannibalize our own business model and move away from it. They said, let's open up more stores. Well, instead of saying, let's do something different now, because other entrepreneurs are coming on the scene. And who was the other entrepreneur? Well, Netflix. Most people don't remember. Netflix started, how did they start? Do you remember, Kiana?
I do. They would mail the movies to your home. So
they used what they said was the same videos that you're getting from Blockbuster Video. Instead of you getting off of your couch or leaving your house, we're going to mail them to you. There's not going to be different videos. They're going to be exactly the same videos. But this is their strategy. When we talk about how are they different, well, they're going to use a different distribution channel. Okay, and so could Blockbuster Video have done that themselves? Yes. Why didn't they? Well, because they were thinking tactically versus strategically. And what they said was, we have all of this real estate that we've already bought. So they were burdened by what they had invested in the past. And they said, we have all of this real estate. Instead of saying, you know what, this is becoming antiquated, we need to let this model go. What they didn't do is they didn't engage in the theory of sunk costs. The theory of sunk cost says let that go and focus on tomorrow. Last example of that. If you go online, you'll see how they catch monkeys. And what you'll see is, if you Googled how they catch monkeys, what you'll see is you'll see videos and photos of monkeys being caught. And the way that they catch monkeys in certain parts of the world is they have a tree, they cut out a little hole in the tree, and they put a ledge in that hole. And they put on that ledge a little piece of fruit, cut banana or something like that. The monkey comes up, looks into that hole, sees the fruit, puts his hand in there, grabs the fruit. But you know what? That hole is such that the only way you can take your hand out is to let go of that fruit. So how do they catch that monkey? He won't let go of the fruit.
Won't let go of the fruit.
He's not engaging in the theory of sunk costs because he says, I've worked hard to get this fruit. So I'm going to stay here until this tree falls over or breaks down or something like that. And that's how we are as entrepreneurs oftentimes. We say, I've always had this menu. I put so much money buying this equipment to make this product and everything like that. And the reality is nobody's buying that product anymore. So we should always, as the CEO, going back to where we started, CEO's primary job is to be the visionary. And the CEO's primary job, and the way to be a visionary, is to think strategically. And that is your job as a CEO every freaking year, every freaking month, every day. How can I stay fresh?
Oh, you are refreshing me right now, Professor Rogers. I think about that. I actually use the Blockbuster model in my book. And I talk about that because they actually had the opportunity to purchase Netflix.
Oh, I didn't know that part, but you hit it right on it. They could have purchased more than they could have done it themselves, right? There was nothing to stop them from doing it. But there you go. They could have purchased it.
And the other thing is they didn't look at the era of convenience. So Netflix was able to tap into it, and they were nimble enough to adopt their model where at first it was mail in, and they immediately within a couple of years went to just this on demand. So Blockbuster was still, like you said, sometimes we could be spoiled as business owners. We say, oh, even me, well, people still come through the door every day. They don't want to purchase online. This is what they do every day, but you have to tap into, you have to have that foresight to figure out what's the next need.
That's your job. That's your job as the CEO, and that is what is to be the visionary. And think about Netflix as an example of what we said earlier, multiple lines of revenue. So Netflix was doing pretty well mailing videos. They didn't stop there. They continued to think strategically, how are we going to stay different? And so not only Netflix, but look at when we go to a grocery store and we come out of a grocery store, if we want a video, what do we see there?
The red box.
We see Redbox. Think about it. Redbox is still in business. How many Blockbuster videos are there in the country? 0.
Yeah.
Could remember Blockbuster Video had a monopoly. Could Blockbuster Video have done what Redbox does? And Redbox their way of being different, their strategy is simply, we're going to offer you videos at dirt cheap prices. Blockbuster Video could have done that. The point for everybody in your listening audience is your job is to always think strategically. Even when things are going well, you are to engage in constructive paranoia.
Absolutely.
Think somebody's coming after me. Tiger Woods, when he was at the height of his success, you know what he did? He actually changed his swing. People said, wait, it's already working for you. He said, no, it won't work for me tomorrow, though. So I'm going to actually invest in it. That's a bold move. It's also bold for us as business owners, and you cited yourself, Kiana, as an example, to let go. Remember the theory of sunk cost. It's tough to let go of a product line that I've always said is my favorite product line. Okay? But that's why ideally we need to have a board of advisors or somebody who we run ideas off of, who can help us think strategically. I'm a very strong proponent of Black entrepreneurs need not try to embrace the John Wayne or the model of management and think that I'm the only one who knows it. I believe in collaboration and getting feedback from others. And when you get the feedback, shut your mouth. And that's hard for us as entrepreneurs, especially when we're in the leadership position, to allow feedback to be given to us without shutting it down. But also, one of the things I would say to you is when you're going to allow people to give you feedback. They do know how, they do typically need to learn how to give feedback as well. So ideally, you want to do that in a proactive way versus reactively saying, I'm sick of y'all. All y'all do is criticize me. Well, the way to do it is at the beginning, before you actually get engaged in the feedback process, or the first stage of the feedback process, is to teach people the feedback should be about the process, not about the person. It should be about these items right here. Okay.
I think that's great. Definitely getting advisors. One entrepreneur I know that we have in common that we both are a fan of is Kim Lewis from Curl Mix, and she talked about how she was able to grow to 8 million, and the way that she was able to do that was actually by investing in advisors and not just taking people time lightly. She really took that time because the return will come back. But you have to have other people around you, and hopefully people that are further along than you or experienced in a certain area that may not be your strength. It's the same reason why we have accountants and lawyers, and we don't try to take those tasks on ourselves. But I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, we're counting our dollars and we're afraid to spend it.
Right.
But you have to be strategic, of course, with it. But that investment will come back. It's just like a loan investment. So if you have to pay somebody $10,000 for counsel, they might be able to give you $100,000 in savings or an idea to help you. So,
well, to that point, I serve on the board of several Fortune 500 companies. I'm an advisor to AfricanAncestry.com. It's a Black-owned company in Washington, D.C. A sister who owns it, she reached out to me. She said, I need somebody to help me. I need a sounding board. I need an advisor. So I am a paid advisor to AfricanAncestry.com. I just recently agreed to be a paid advisor to a company in Toronto that is run by one of my former Kellogg students from 15 years ago, running the company. And I don't know anybody who's ever had success without having somebody else to help them. And when I owned my own companies, I had a board of advisors also. And one of them was a brother by the name of Don Beal, who owned home improvement centers in Chicago. And Don would come to my board of advisors meetings that we had every quarter, and he'd actually chew me out. I own the company, and he's coming in there, and he's chewing my ass out. But we all need that. We need somebody to help take us to the next level. And Don Beal is the nicest guy you'll ever meet in the world. He was never mean or anything like that, but he took me to the mat, and he said, listen, if I'm going to be spending my time to help you, then I'm going to speak to you frankly, not meanly, but I'm going to speak to you frankly. And when we come back next quarter, I expect to see some results from that. Otherwise, you're wasting my time. For me, that helped me considerably because the entire operation of the business wasn't on my shoulders anymore. I had the brilliance of a man who had, as you said, Kiana, earlier, I had the brilliance of a man who was at that time running like 40 different home improvement centers. What do I look like being too proud to get advice from him? And we all need it.
We do. So we learn from others, getting ourselves financially ready. Do you have any final tips that you would like to see specifically for Black entrepreneurs, since we're talking about rebuilding Black Wall Street, they can really do, like you said, to take it from a lifestyle business, which is nothing wrong with that, but we want to create as much legacy as possible?
Well, we want to create legacy. We want to create money. And so we want to create wealth. And, it takes as much energy to run a business with $50,000 in revenue as it does to run a business with $2 million in revenue. Okay. Wow. And the reason why it takes more for 50,000, because typically you're the only person doing all the work. $2 million, you got some other resources, somebody helping you. So if for no other reason, grow because it can actually lighten your load. Some people get intimidated by growing because I'm scared of it. The reality is it'll result in something positive. I'll close with this, and that is, I'm a finance professor. Finance is not brain surgery. Everybody in your listening audience can learn it. I was a history major in college, so I didn't major in finance, but finance is something that every entrepreneur must learn, and that is the basic fundamentals of finance. So what I suggest that everybody, if you don't know the basic fundamentals of finance today, that you invest in yourself by either getting my book taking a course online, but being vulnerable, being willing to be vulnerable such that you say, I don't know this stuff.
Yes.
Therefore, I need to learn it. Because if you don't learn it, you'll never be able to grow like you should be able to grow. So learn the fundamentals of finance such that you understand what the financial statements look like, how to read them, how they're interrelated with each other, and more importantly, how you can proactively use them as tools to grow your business. So I'm a big proponent on Black business owners learning the fundamentals of finance. If you learn the fundamentals of finance, under that umbrella comes understanding debt financing, understand equity financing. And I'll close by saying again, passion is not enough. Just saying, listen, I've always wanted a business and I'll just work really hard. That's just not enough. Learn the fundamentals of finance. And now I don't have a background in marketing, but I'm also a proponent of the fundamentals of marketing as well. Those are the two most important things right there that I would say to everybody. This has been my absolute pleasure. It's always a joy to talk to you, Kiana. Thank you for inviting me.
It is always a joy, Professor. I thank you so much for just sharing your information. Definitely everybody needs to purchase the book, Entrepreneurial Finance. It is truly worth the investment, and it's worth the investment even as you grow as an entrepreneur. Like I said, I've been doing this almost 15 years. That one nugget, people need to always continuously educate themselves. That one nugget could be the game changer in your business and take you from 6 figures to 7 figures and beyond. So I just want to make sure that all of our people that are listening and watching, make sure that they just truly invest the time that they need to grow the business. Like you said, passion is not enough. It's enough maybe to sustain you, maybe. But if you really want to create something, create those jobs and opportunities. I'll leave with this stat that you said, Professor Rogers, that 95% of our businesses aren't employing other people that are under 250,000 in revenue. So the game changer to really be able to rebuild is we need people working. We need people working in our businesses, and we need to create the jobs and the opportunities so we become our own ecosystem. So I thank you for all your wealth of knowledge. He is such a powerhouse. Everybody Google him if you have not already. He has helped so many businesses scale and grow, and he's given us this knowledge for free. So I appreciate you always, Professor Rogers. And I appreciate you for your legacy too. He got some things working behind the scenes and working to empower a lot of Black entrepreneurs. So I thank you in advance for all the magic and work that you're doing that people will see real soon.
Been my absolute pleasure. Thank you very much. Continue good luck.
Thank you.